Is this a drill or something?
Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader.
Greetings, Exalted Ones. My name is Dash. One of the most intimidating titles in Star Wars history is also one of the most blatant. Shared by generations of Sith Lords, the title of Darth was shared by at least 6 known dark side practitioners in canon. Quite literally meaning dark, the title was followed sometimes by an all-new moniker that differed from the Sith Lord's given name as a signifier to their new path to power. But when it comes to secondary names, things aren't as basic as the title that precedes them. Today, we're counting down 6 hidden meanings behind our favourite Darths in canon.
What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
Darth Tyrannus. Count Dooku's self-descriptive moniker has roots in several different cultures and mythologies, directly reaching back to the Latin roots for tyrant. Tyrannus is a name that perfectly fits Count Dooku, who is perhaps known best for wreaking years-long havoc throughout the galaxy as he led the Separatist forces. A deserter of the title Jedi Master, Dooku's fall to the dark side truly defined him as a tyrant for countless people and planets across the known galaxy. But there's another side to this title that flips it on its head, found within the stories of the Bible. The name Tyrannus paints a broad stroke in meaning and can be defined as prince, sovereign, or one that reigns. Kind of matches Count a little bit more. And under different contexts, all of those mean something different. The Tyrannus of the Bible, however, was far more benevolent than his name might imply. Tyrannus is thought to have been a Jewish rabbi who opened up the doors of his school in Ephesus for Paul when he was kicked out of his usual preaching place. For 2 years, Paul proposed and defended the doctrines of the gospel at Tyrannus' place. Needless to say, Dooku's Darth namesake was a lot more open-minded than he was. Tyrannus is the first known Darth to have had a new name bestowed upon him by his master in Star Wars canon, and it's not quite clear whether or not this was standard practice, especially considering that Darth Bane already held the title of Darth when he created the Rule of Two. Speak of the devil. Darth Bane. 1,000 years before the Clone Wars began, Darth Bane found himself the only survivor of the Sith, all but wiped out by the Jedi Order, thanks to the Sith's violent infighting. Bane created the Rule of Two as a way to keep master and apprentice in balance, and later, Darth Sidious continued this tradition with both Count Dooku and Darth Vader, and of course Darth Maul. Bane's name holds a fairly blatant meaning and a much more interesting history. The definition states that a Bane can be anyone or anything that is cause of agony, ruin, or death, but the roots of the word rest within Old and Middle English ages, conjured from the word Bana. While we might consider certain pests or people as the bane of our existence, Bana was used to describe giant monsters dreamed up in fairy tales, and on a much less happy day, it was a handy word to use when describing a widespread plague. The word even took root in poisonous plants like wolfsbane and henbane. Despite ultimately being destroyed by the Jedi, Darth Bane's deadly presence remained a heavy weight within the dark side of the Force, influencing just the right Sith Lord to drive the galaxy into turmoil and, more importantly, bring the Jedi to their knees. That loyal servant of the Sith would ultimately become Darth Sidious, with one perfect descriptor of a name and just the right apprentices, Chancellor turned Emperor Sheev Palpatine carved his way towards ultimate power over the span of roughly 3 decades. tricking his loyal friends and followers at every turn. This perfectly defines the origins of his name, considering that the word insidious defines treachery, trickery, and widespread chaos that proceeds in a gradual, subtle way with harmful effects. Darth Sidious adapted the rule of two when he, having decided that he'd learned more than enough, murdered his master and took on his first apprentice. It's unclear whether or not his master, Darth Plagueis, actually granted the name Sidious upon Palpatine when he was first taken on as an apprentice, but if he did, perhaps he wasn't as wise as we've all made him out to be.
I'm going to turn you over to the Jedi Council.
Of course, you should. But you're not sure of their intentions, are you?
Darth Maul. Sidious' first apprentice was a dangerous Zabrak boy from Dathomir and the son of Mother Talzin, who often exchanged wisdom with the Sith Lord. Sidious, who had promised to take on Mother Talzin as his apprentice, effectively, shock horror, betrayed Talzin and kidnapped a young Maul in her place. Maul is the only known Sith Lord to hold the title of Darth whilst keeping his birth name, but to Sidious, that didn't quite matter. After being abandoned by his master once he was thought dead, Maul continued an excruciating existence, wild and even more deadly than before once he received his mechanical legs. Maul's name, of course, refers to the types of vicious attacks by animals where their victims are often disfigured or torn apart. What makes it interesting, perhaps in an upsetting way, for any Maul sympathizers out there is that Maul is also a wooden hammer tool that's used to drive wedges into place. Maul's very name might have implied that Sidious chose him from the beginning as a temporary tool to help lay down the foundation of Sidious's empire. Darth Plagueis. While he might not have been as wise as he thought, the effects of Darth Plagueis' teachings are a part of what helped Sidious's rise to incredible power. Plagueis' unique abilities were rumored to be able to bring the dead back to life and influence midi-chlorians to create life. While that did spawn quite a few fan theories, Plagueis' name fits him perfectly as the master of the man who dominated the galaxy. Sidious's slow crawl to power was spurred on by the teachings of his master, who had reached a level of power so great that the only thing Plagueis truly feared was losing it, which he eventually did. Planted in Sidious's head like the first victim of a virus, Plagueis' teachings are what brought back the rule of two and effectively convinced Anakin Skywalker to become Palpatine's long-term steady apprentice, which, of course, leads us to...
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Darth Vader. The moniker that's easily the most widely known, and for good reason, belongs to the former Anakin Skywalker, giving in wholly to the dark side and further succumbing to it after the death of his wife. Vader's transformation after being given his new titles was one of the most physically radical of them all. It's widely believed that his name, Vader, was a clue from the start of his role in the original trilogy. This is because both of its German and Dutch roots, which are pronounced Vater and Vader, respectively, both mean father. His name, though, wasn't meant to be an Easter egg at all, despite George Lucas going on record and saying that, quote, Darth is a variation of Dark and Vader is a variation of Father, so it's basically Dark Father. Luke Skywalker's parentage wasn't decided until later drafts of Empire Strikes Back. So, what context could the name have that made Lucas and his team decide on it? Unfortunately, that remains a mystery. The words find more roots in the Latin word vado, which means to go, and in Norwegian bokmals vade, which means to ford, or to wade across a river on foot. Vader's journey certainly was long and perilous, so the idea of him navigating changing tides between the light and the dark side of the Force isn't too far-fetched, but in truth, Vader could simply be derived from invader. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the stories of legends conjured with even more stories of Sith Lords who proudly held the title of Darth, including Talon, Kaidos, Revan, and the former original Darth and Dedu, just to name a few. The history of the title held just as much, if not more gravity in the expanded universe, where the history of the Sith was obtainable through the bountiful stories created after Return of the Jedi. As for the future, no one holds the title of Darth anymore, though titles continue on. on, the former Ben Solo is now the leader of the Knights of Ren, and with a full name like Kylo Ren, the patterning is unmistakable. But Supreme Leader Snoke's approach and even his ultimate objectives are still unclear. So the once terrifying, long-lived title of Darth remains hanging in the balance of galactic history. But the beauty of this video is it is just the start of the discussion. Our love for Star Wars surrounds and it binds us together, so let me know in the comments below, who is your favorite Darth in canon? Because if you love Star Wars, I want to talk to you about it. It's as simple as that, my friends. If you want to stay up to date with the latest Star Wars videos on origins, games, and theories, don't forget to use those force powers of yours and hit subscribe. And hey, leave a comment below about what you want to see in future videos. It may just get covered. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you. Always.